Everything began with the metallic creak of that heavy, centuries-old oak door. A sound scraping the soul as it rose from its hinges. Moving into a new house was not merely a change of address for Selin. It was an attempt to cling to life after surviving the wreckage of a failed marriage. They had fled the city's endless, grinding roar and taken refuge in this dignified, silent mansion. From the outside, with its vast garden and ivy-choked facade, the house looked like a peaceful harbor. But the moment the sun dipped below the horizon, turning the sky into a bruised purple wound, the air inside the house grew heavy, as if compressed by an invisible hand. Oxygen gave way to a stagnant stillness that burned the throat, reeking of mold and damp decay. Arda was only 5 years old, one of those gentle, clear children still trying to make sense of the world through colored pencils and fairy tale heroes. During the chaos of moving day, while the movers sweated and hauled boxers, he had played quietly in the far corner of the garden, murmuring to himself beneath the shade of a massive plane tree. Selin was grateful for her son's adaptability, but that first night, when the last rays of sunlight retreated from the corners of the rooms and darkness claimed its dominion, the first cracks began to form in Arda's pristine world. Selin put Arda to bed in his new room, read him his favorite story, and kissed his forehead warmly. "This is our castle, sweetheart," she whispered. When she turned off the light and went to the living room, a sweet yet crushing exhaustion from the move weighed on her. She was just about to sink into the couch and savor the silence when she froze at the sound coming from upstairs from Arda's room. It wasn't crying, nor was it a scream of fear. It was more like a muffled, rhythmic whisper, as if someone were sharing a secret directly into an ear. As Selin set her coffee cup on the table, even the soft clink of porcelain against glass echoed THUNDEROUSLY. Each step on the staircase groaned in sync with her heartbeat. When she slowly pushed the door open, she found Arda sitting upright in his bed. "Sweetheart, why aren't you asleep? Did something happen?" Arda didn't look at her. His eyes were locked onto the built-in wardrobe standing in the darkest dark corner of the room, its door slightly ajar. The weak, yellow light of a street lamp seeped through the curtains, stretching the shadows of the furniture into unrecognizable monsters. With a trembling finger, Arda pointed at the pitch-black void beside the wardrobe. "Mom," he said, his voice shaking but strangely calm. "Why is that man standing there?" His feet looked very cold. "Why don't you cover them?" An icy hand seemed to slide its fingers down Selin's spine. The room felt as if its temperature had dropped several degrees. "My son," she said, her voice cracking, "there's no one there. That's just the wardrobe where we hang our coats. Look, you'll see when I turn on the light." She flipped the switch, and the room filled with artificial brightness. Selin exhaled deeply. That there were only teddy bears, half-open boxers, and furniture, but Arda was still staring at the same spot. He blinked rapidly. "He's gone," Arda said, his voice now hollow and lifeless. "He went behind the curtain. When Yo came, but he's still there, Mom. I can see his toes under the curtain. They're very dirty, and he has no nails." Forcing her rational mind to the limit, Selin yanked the curtain open. Behind it was only cold glass and tree branches swaying in the wind outside. "See? It's empty," she said, trying to calm Arda, afraid he would not notice her trembling hands. That night, for the first time in her life, Selin felt disgusted by the dark. When she went to her own room, she couldn't bring herself to. Close the door. She clung to the faint glow of the hallway nightlight. By the second day, the house's atmosphere had grown even more suffocating. Selin buried herself in work to silence the gnawing doubt in her Minden packing boxes, wiping shelves. No matter how much detergent she used, the heavy, stale smell refused to leave. That afternoon, as she loaded the dishwasher, she felt warmth on the back of her neck. Someone was Dot, standing right behind her, staring without breathing. The sensation was so tangible that Selin instinctively gripped the plate in her hand like a weapon and spun around. The kitchen was empty, but the surface of a glass of water on the counter trembled Dot slightly, as if someone had just passed by it. When night fell and darkness once again draped the Dot house like a shroud, Arda came into the kitchen. This time, something was different. Dot, his steps were heavy, his shoulders slumped, his face pale as chalk. His eyes were watery not from the urge to cry, but like the physical manifestation of terror. "Mom?" he whispered. "Why isn't the man by the wardrobe breathing?" The cloth slipped from Selin's hand. "What do you mean he isn't breathing?" "Arda, what are you saying, sweetheart?" "He's looking at me. Mom, he never blinks. His eyes, the inside of his eyes are completely white, dot except for a tiny red dot in the middle. He's wearing a very old, muddy jacket. He's trying to tell me something. But when he opens his mouth..." Arda paused, his throat tightening. "When he opens his mouth, only black, sticky water comes out. It spills onto the carpet. Mom, but you can't see it." Selin felt her knees weaken. A 5-year-old's imagination could be vivid, but black water and a man who doesn't breathe were not fairy tale monsters a child would invent. It sounded more like the description of a corpse. "Arda, come here," Selin said, pulling her son into her arms. His body was ice cold. "This is just exhaustion from the move. You're dreaming or turning shadows into things." Dot double quotes, "No!" Mom, Arda said, burying his head into Selin's shoulder. "He doesn't just stand by the wardrobe anymore. He leaves when you look, but the moment you step out, he slides down from the ceiling. He's upside down, Mom. When he walks upside down on the ceiling, he turns his head toward me. His neck makes a crack sound, and he smiles at me. His teeth are very sharp and black." That night, Selin took Arda into her own bed. She turned on every light in the house. She raised the TV volume to drown out the house. A sinister silence. But at exactly midnight, all the fuses blew with a loud explosion. Darkness flooded the room like a starving animal. As Selin sat in pitch blackness with Arda in her arms, she heard a sound from upstairs. Thud, 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 as if someone were walking barefoot and wet across the ceiling. By the morning of the third day, there was no room left in Selin's mind for the possibility of hallucination. With dark circles under her eyes, she went out into the neighborhood, determined to speak with the neighbors, especially oldest one, elderly Mariam Hanim. As she listened, the lines on her face deepened, and the teacup in her hand began to tremble. "That house," the old woman said quietly, like a warning. "An old man lived there 10 years ago. At no one. They said he wasn't quite right in the head. One day, the house fell silent. No one that came out for weeks. When the police broke the door down," she paused, as if reliving the moment. "They found him kneeling in front of the built-in wardrobe in that small room. But do you know the strange part? Before he had poured black paint into his own mouth, his esophagus, all his internal organs filled with that black paint. When they found the body, he was stiff, his eyes fixed on the ceiling. Selin felt her stomach churn. Arda's description of Blackwater aligned too perfectly with this horror. When she returned home, fear had given way to pure terror. But she still had nowhere to run. Evening was approaching. Dot and the sun was setting once again on that cursed house. That night, she laid Arda on the couch in the living room. "Close your eyes and don't open them," she said. She would stay beside him. But around 3:14 a.m., Selin woke without realizing she had fallen into a heavy sleep. The spot beside her was empty. Arda, no answer. Only that murmuring from upstairs, from Arda's room, as Selin headed for the stairs. Don't she realize the steps were ice, as if a river were flowing through the house, carrying the chill of death. The door to Arda's room was ajar. The murmuring was clearer now. Arda was talking. "Yes, my mom. Can't hear. Are you going to take her too?" "No, she'd be very scared. Why are your feet so long?" Her trembling hand reached for the door. What she saw when she entered was enough to burn the rest of her mind to ash. Arda was sitting in the middle of the room, his head twisted completely backward. The side of his neck bones stretched under the skin. Riadito snap nearly made Selin vomit. "Arda!" She tried to scream, but no sound came out. Arda looked at her with that horrifying, fully reversed head, but the gaze wasn't his. His pupils were going replaced by that infamous white dot void, with a tiny red dot in the center, in a voice that was old, guttural, and sounded as if his throat were filled with sludge. Arda spoke. "He knows you're here. He's waiting for you to look behind you, Selin, because he can't pass through mirrors, but he can walk inside shadows. And right now, he's standing directly behind you." Selin turned her head in an uncontrollable reflex. From the shadow beside the wardrobe, a hand reached out. Not a handsome thing like a claw, with disproportionately long fingers. Its skin wet and black, a mass of flesh. The shadow slowly rose, stretching up to the ceiling. The entity wasn't breathing. Its chest didn't move. It was simply there, staring at Selin, as the embodiment of absolute absence and pure evil. In that moment, driven by animal instinct, Selin grabbed Arda. She would never forget the sound as his neck snapped back into place. She didn't remember how she got down the stairs, how she opened the door, or how she got into the car barefoot. As Selin swerved onto the main road, her hands clenched the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white and her fingertips went numb. In the back seat, Arda was curled into the fetal position, asleep in a deep, rattling slumber-ass. If he hadn't just had his neck twisted at an impossible angle, Selin was afraid to look in the rearview mirror, because she knew she wouldn't just see the empty road, but those sooty, long fingers parting the curtain in Arda's bedroom window. That image was branded into her mind like a searing seal. They took refuge in a hotel after midnight. Selin turned on every light and blasted the television volume, but it was useless. Even the white walls of the modern sterile hotel room seemed to whisper the damp, rotten smell of that old house. When Arda woke up, he remembered nothing. "Mom, why are we here? My toys are still at home," he asked innocently. But Selin would have sworn she could still see that needle-sized red dot at the very center of his pupils. Within a week, everything was settled. A moving company collected their belongings. Selin never set foot in that house again. One of the movers called her afterward with a strange question. "Ma'am, There was a pool of black liquid inside the wardrobe in the upstairs child's room. It's like oil, but it smells very heavy. We tried to clean it, but it's like it's vomiting up from inside the floorboards. Gesto, you should know, when Selin hung up, her stomach twisted. She had escaped, but what she left behind wasn't just a house. It was an existence embedded in its walls, feeding on its soil. Their new apartment was on one of the city's busiest streets, 7th floor. Dot modder, full of light, a glass tower that smelled of security in every corner. Selin thought she would be safe here. It can't reach high places, she reasoned. It belongs to the earth and dampness. She was wrong. The paranormal obeys neither gravity nor architecture. The first week passed peacefully. Arda started kindergarten. Selin returned to work, but one evening, as Selin washed her face in the bathroom, she saw a dark shape standing in the doorway behind her. Reflection. She spun around nothing. When she looked back at the mirror, there was a small, wet handprint on the glass, perfectly sized for Arda is a neck. Height. The print was on the outside of the glass, but reversed as if someone inside the mirror had pressed against it. That night, the murmuring began again from Arda's room. Selin stood outside the door, listening, her breath caught. There are a lot of mirrors here, Arda was saying, as if guiding someone. Yes, my mom likes them. But don't worry, I'll hide your face in the mirrors. No one will see. Selin threw the door open. Arda was sitting on his bed, staring at the full-length mirror on the wall. The mirror should have reflected the room, but instead, it was clouded with thick, gray mist. Arda, who are you talking to? Arda slowly turned his head. His neck moved normally this time, but the expression on his face froze. Selin's blood on the face of a 5-year-old child sat the sorrow and hatred of an 80-year-old man. He didn't leave, Mom, Arda said. He just changed places. You thought you left him outside, but he held onto your shadow when you left. When you walk, he stretches beneath your feet. When you sleep, he climbs from under the bed to the ceiling. From that night on, the paranormal activity ceased to be a feeling and became physical assault. Selin woke one morning to find black bruises on her legs, shaped like fingerprints, as if something had tried to pull her under the bed all night. All the milk in the house soured overnight. Bread molded inside its bag within minutes. Worst of all was the smell. The damp, rotting stench of the old house began seeping through the ventilation ducts of this ultra-luxury. One night, Selin gave up. Dot standing in the middle of the living room with a flashlight, she shouted into the void, "What do you want? Why won't you leave us alone?" The answer came as the television suddenly turned on. The screen showed static, but the voice from the speakers was impossibly deep, grinding like tectonic plates, scraping beneath the earth. Space. Narrow. Too narrow. Can't breathe. In that moment, Selin realized the truth. The man hadn't poured black paint into his mouth. That blackness was something that had entered him, consumed him from the inside, and now that something was searching for a new vessel. Arda. She bolted into the hallway. Arda's bedroom door was locked. Selin slammed into it, punched it, clawed at it. From inside came not Arda's screams, but that horrible, guttural laughter. He's coming. He's coming inside. It's very cold, but very soft. When Selin broke the door down, what she saw was where human logic collapsed. Arda was stuck to the ceiling. No, he was being pulled into it. From the shadow in the corner, those Dotsudi, long arms wrapped around him like a spider. The entity slowly leaned its head out. Behind Arda, it had no face, only two red dots and a massive beneath them, constantly pouring out that black, tar-like fluid. The entity extended its free hand toward Selin, and in that moment, Selin saw that the hand dot was emerging from her own shadow. There was no escape, no distance. That house, that man, and that black water had already infected her soul. Selin never fully remembered how she survived that night, or how she pulled Arda from those invisible claws. Her memory was swallowed by a black curtain. All she knew was that at dawn, she found herself with Arda in the emergency room of a hospital. The doctor said mass, cystadia, post-traumatic stress disorder. They diagnosed the long fingerprint-shaped bruises on Arda's body as an allergic reaction. Now, months later, Selin and Arda live in another city, in a small seaside town. There are no mirrors in the house, no built-in wardrobes. The moment the sun sets, Selin floods the house with floodlights, spending a fortune to ensure not a single square centimeter of darkness remains. But peace is still far away, because Arda no longer speaks. He only watches. Sometimes 4 hours. His eyes lock onto the empty space just behind Selin's shoulder as Selin cooks, reads, or tries to sleep. She knows that Arda's eyes, those eyes filled with tiny red dots, are following her shadow. And sometimes, in the quietest hour of the night, just as Selin is about to fall asleep, she hears that wet, sticky voice right beside her ear. "Thank you, Selin, for bringing us here." Selin doesn't dare open her eyes, because she knows that if she does, she will come face to face with that upside-down dot man on the ceiling. Black water pouring from his mouth, and this time, that black water will dot flow into Selin's mouth until it drowns all her light, all her memories, and all her life. Some houses are never truly abandoned. Some souls are never set free, and some shadows never leave their owner. Tionli wait for the next victim to open the door with a creak.